What's up, Dungeon Masters? This is Nick, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how I set up my table to prepare for a session of Dungeons & Dragons. We're going to be taking a look at what's going on behind the Dungeon Master screen, as well as doing a quick walk around the table to show what's out there for the players. Now this is what I like to have set up before the first person even walks through the door. That way we can jump right into gameplay and not spend time sharpening pencils and searching for miniatures. There are a few things that I like to have always available behind the screen, and then others that I just kind of keep within arm's reach. Now the arm's reach items are over here to the left. You can see that I have the core rule books. So there's the Monster Manual, Dungeon Master's Guide, and on top is the Player's Handbook. And the way that I make these manageable for my session is I take a bunch of post-it sticky tabs and I label the important sections in the book. That way, if somebody has a question on a spell or a question on a feat, I can quickly flip to that section and get the answer. Over here, I have some miniatures. Now, if it's going to be a heavy role-playing session, I may not have any, or just one or two sitting behind the screen. If it's going to be kind of a dungeon crawl hack and slash session, then what I like to do is have all the miniatures that I think we're going to use out and ready. Maybe if there's going to be a couple of random encounters that I have planned, I like to have all those ready. That way I don't need to go down into the bins over there and install a game. Right in the center is the meat of the operation. You can see that I have the Lost Mine of Phandelver module. So whether you're running a pre-made or your own homebrew, you're going to want to have your notes right there, dead center, ready to go. In this binder, I have a bunch of just useful information printed out. Anything that I find myself referencing frequently, I just print it out and put it in the binder. That way I can just flip directly to it. So right here I have weapons and armor. Here we have some monsters by challenge rating. I also got a bunch of cool little maps in here. You can see there's a Neverwinter map. Over on this side is Helm's Hold. You don't have to copy this, but whatever you find useful during your session, just have that ready to go. To the far right, you can see that I have a trusty pencil and notepad. You're going to want to have one of these, obviously, for just tracking stuff throughout the session. Maybe the players meet a new NPC. Maybe they give you a little piece of their backstory that you hadn't really had before. So just keep that back here for notes. That way you can quickly jot it down and use it for the future sessions. Up here we have just a small collection of dice. I have everything from a D4 up to a D20, as well as a critical hit body location dice, which is super fun to use if you've never used that before. And the way that we play that is if you roll a natural 20, you get to roll that crit hit body location dice. If it's a headshot, it's basically an insta-kill. And the way that we like to do that is I also do that for the mobs, or for the monsters. It doesn't kill the players, but it may knock them out, break a leg. Any number of fun things can happen. And the reason that I like to use that is I used to play this text-based scrolling game called Arctic Mud, and you could get these weapons that were called decapitation weapons, and it didn't matter how big and nasty that mob was. If you decapped it, it was just dead. So, kind of fun to use. You may not want to do it for your big boss fights if you have a large battle sequence kind of planned out. Might be kind of a bummer, but the players absolutely love it. Right here we have NPC portraits, and this is from Inkwell Ideas. Check out my other video where I do a full review of this deck. If you haven't used these before, they are absolutely amazing. As you're aware, a lot of times the players will go off on what I like to call random side quest, and you may not have planned for it. So let's say they're roaming around through Neverwinter Wood and they stumble into a elvish scout party. What I'll do is just grab the deck, flip through till I find an interesting elf, and as I'm showing them who they're talking to, I can flip it around to the back, and all the hard work has already been done for me. You can see I already have a name to go off of. There's personality, strengths, quirks, and if you really decide to integrate this NPC into your game, there's a little background section that you can use down there as well. So you can change this around however you want, kind of make it your own, or just use the card the way it is. So we got a cool looking elf here. Looks like a stone cold dwarf. Cool looking half orc. So again, highly recommend these. Super fun to use in the campaign. Over here we have spell cards and monster cards, and these ones are the ones directly from Wizards, and these are really useful and helpful, especially for new players. Not everybody may necessarily know what an ogre is, so as they stumble upon one, you can just kind of, you know, poke it up over the DM screen. Everybody can see what they're dealing with. And then on the back side, you have access to all the monster's stats. There's AC, hit points, action. It's basically just a miniature monster manual for that monster. In addition, we also have spellcasting cards here. So this monster, the Flame Skull, is a spellcaster. Up in the top right corner of the card, you can see the spellcasting stats or information. So he's got cantrips all the way through 3rd level spells. And what I like to do is I'll have my spellcaster sitting back here, and then I'll go through and I'll pull the spell cards that I think that monster would use, or that I want it to use, or that I think would be fun. And I'll just pull those spells out and have them ready to go. That way I don't have to go look it up or write it down. I just have the spell card waiting for me. Now, if you're a DM and you don't have any of these, but you're thinking of getting some cards, I would recommend starting with the Arcana ones, because they include Wizard, Warlock, and Sorcerer, and a lot of the monsters that cast spells seem to have those spells available to them. So again, if you're just gonna go out and start buying these, I would start with the Arcana ones. And you don't need to pull every spell that the monster can use, because as you saw on that list, it can get, there was quite a few there. So if it's a high level caster, you might be pulling a lot of spells. Just pull the ones that you think you're gonna use. Or just have the ones that you're gonna use sitting on the card, and then have the other ones on standby in case you do need to look them up. Right here are magic item cards. Now these do come in the red border as well, but I purchased the Essentials kit and I haven't actually bought the magic item cards themselves yet. So I'm just using these in the meantime. So as the players are discovering magic items, finding loot, just pass these out, and then in addition to their character sheet, it's something else to reference if they have questions on what their item does. Recommend getting a small hourglass. There is nothing more fun, for me anyways, than giving the players just some crazy scenario or situation, and then just as they're starting to talk about it and figure things out, I'll just slam that down on the table, just watch their eyes pop out as they realize they only have minutes to figure it out. Right here we have the DM screen. We don't really need to go over that. My initiative tracker. And be sure to check out my other video where I go into depth on why I've chosen this method for tracking initiative. There's also a couple of other things that I like to use that for. So be sure to check that out and let me know if you have any questions. And that is everything that I got going on behind the screen. Let's go ahead and take a quick walk around the table. So first thing you probably noticed is that I have a large battle grid mat. This is roughly 4 feet by 3 feet, and I believe this is from Chessex. And if we take a closer look, you can see it's divided into 1-inch squares. On the reverse side, it's got a little hex grid. So what I'll do is whatever location that I think they're probably going to go to, I like to draw that out on the main side with the 1-inch squares, and then any secondary locations I'll sketch out on the back. Now we don't always use a battle grid, but my players really seem to like it. Just kind of helps them visualize where they're at and what their character is doing in relation to the monsters. And I don't mind using it either. I started with 4th edition where it was kind of more grid based, and it's just kind of stuck with me. I also like to have the players' characters out here on the mat ready for them to go. You can see I have a little compass, 4-point compass rose drawn here. I would recommend sketching that out on the grid if you are going to use one, because let's say that Godfist here comes to a fork in the road. So as you come to the fork in the path, you see to the northwest there is a dark hallway covered in cobwebs leading into the darkness. To the north is a well-lit path that leads to a large stone door, and to the northeast you can see a trail leading into the darkness. The ground is covered with slime and water. So that's all good and great, but okay, which direction's north? Which way is northwest, northeast? So if you have that out on the map, it makes it super useful for the characters. Over here we have just a bunch of random dice. I like to get the little compartmentalized dice holder. It's all broken down from D4 up to D20. I got the D10s and the percentile dice in the same slot. That way players can just grab exactly what they need as it comes up. Most of them bring their own, but I like to have a large collection here just kind of on standby. Got a bunch of extra pencils and dry erase markers in case I need to quickly sketch something out on the map or the players do. Make sure you have all your pencils sharpened and ready to go. You can see that the grid is covered in a bunch of just printer paper, and the reason that I do that is to just cut down on the metagaming. I don't want the characters to see a room, or the players to see a room and say, oh, there's probably going to be a boss there, we should probably rest before we go in. It just kind of cuts down on the metagaming, so that's why I use the white sheets of paper over the map. And then if you have any players that leave their character sheets, just make sure you have that set out and ready to go. Most of mine bring theirs home, but if they do leave them, make sure it's out there and ready to go. And that is pretty much it. So if you have any questions on anything that we've discussed here, just go ahead and throw it down in the comments. I am always more than happy to answer questions. If you have any feedback, please let me know. If there is something that I left out of my arsenal that I absolutely need to have at the table, go ahead and throw that in the comments as well. Otherwise, I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video, and happy gaming.